Hello to everybody out there. I can't see who's out there, but some of you I may know, some of you I might not know. So again, Steve Hergenreter from Fort Dodge Fire Department. I'm currently the chief there. I've done that job for about 3.5 years. I've actually worked for the city of Fort Dodge for 31 years. So I've come up through the ranks of firefighter, all through company officer to shift commander to chief, and have been in Iowa teaching classes. Hazmat's a big passion of mine, so I may know you through the hazmat world. But been teaching incident command for a long time. I always thought I knew what I was talking about with incident command, and the older I get and the higher up the chain I've gone, I've found out that I didn't know as much about it as I thought I did. And so this class that we're delivering, thanks for stepping in for a short period, is the aggressive command. Sounds kind of a title that jumps out at you, and it's not a reckless incident command. It's just some realities of incident command. I saw a presentation. I'm going to give him credit. Battalion chief. He just retired from Sacramento Fire Department, so large urban fire department. This guy's a battalion chief, so he's kind of like a mid-level manager in a large department like that. But he gave a presentation called Aggressive Command, and so a lot of the things in there that I have in here, I had taken from some things I learned from him. And I don't know if any of you have heard, he's pretty popular in the emergency services world of law enforcement and fire service. A Navy SEAL called Jocko Willink. He wrote a book. It's called Extreme Ownership, and a lot of people follow. Actually, my daughter was a student at UNI, and she told me about the book. However, found out about it about 5 years ago, and so he really pushes a decentralized command and uses a lot of analogies of combat to real world. And his lessons are huge in emergency response. So this has a lot of themes of that battalion chief from Sacramento, and some of the stuff that Jocko Willink, if you don't know of his work, I'm holding up his book here. I don't make any money off of, but a lot of great stuff in there about how to manage emergencies, because he spent his life in the military and special operations, and how they manage people and how they manage things when they're going sideways. So yeah, I took some of that and revolved around how do we prevent people from getting seriously hurt or killed, is what this course revolves around. The top 5 line of duty deaths, and so we'll talk about that and some things we can do that may go a little bit different than the NIMS stuff that we learned, by still using their terminology and the main concept of incident command. It's been around for years, since it came from Phoenix Fire Department and out in California in the wildfires 30-40 years ago. So that's all there. So if you love the NIMS stuff, that's still there. Just gives a little different way of looking at it based on the reality of that. So, and again, my background, being a firefighter and then a company officer and then a shift commander, I was really into the task type of things, and I didn't really have much time for, and I thought it was silly looking at things from a strategic standpoint. And now that I'm in my job and look at the whole world a whole different way from a strategic standpoint, I have a whole different look at incident command. And you guys, I know a lot of you are in public health or in emergency management. I'll tell you what, after March of this year through now, I've learned a lot about strategic and understanding the curve and predicting and where you're going with things in an organization with our pandemic. And so I've been in the world of hazmat and been around hospitals and EMS. Our department is a paramedic transport service for our city, and part of our county we're the paramedics. So I've been around EMS and heard about pandemics and never thought about them real greatly till what happened. So early on in the whole thing, when the state started shutting down, our county stood up an EOC And someone said, hey, I know the Chief Hergenreter, he does incident command stuff. We'll have him be the lead of the EOC. I tried to push it on our EMA guy, but he wasn't gonna have nothing to do with that. So I did that, you guys, and I learned tremendous amount of what I thought I knew and I could talk about in PowerPoint, and even going back into 35 millimeter slides when I started teaching incident command. I I really learned the difference between tactical and strategic. So this revolves around some of that, is where I'm going with that, is looking at things from a strategic standpoint. And the reality is, one of the big parts of the Jocko's book that I talked about, decentralized command. I don't care how good of incident commander you are. If you're the most experienced incident commander in FDNY and you work in Manhattan, you can't do all the things that we teach in traditional incident command class. You have to decentralize and get people doing the things that we typically say the incident commander should be doing. That's just the reality. So with that, we'll take some time at the end to take questions. You guys, I did do this presentation for my command staff at Fort Dodge Fire Department. So some of the things in my slides are eccentric to ours, but I'll try to relate them to what we would do outside of my department. So we're going to take time for questions at the end. I have no idea how fast this is going to go compared to me doing it with my own staff and having lots of conversation. This is my 4th Zoom presentation that I've done in the last couple months, and they've all went a little faster than we anticipated, but I think all of them, it was a good delivery, and we had time to take questions at the end. So we'll plan on doing that, doing questions at the end. So away we go. I'm going to go ahead and get started here. So this revolves around incident command. Its main function is, one, to be organized, but it also is to prevent people from being injured or killed at the scene of an emergency operation. And you guys, NIOSH is the organization that when a fire service or EMS person is killed in the line of duty, it is their role and their jurisdiction to go do an investigation. They don't give out citations. That's like an OSHA. NIOSH's job is to look at what happened and what went sideways and determine what could we do to improve and come up with the contributing factors. And the reality is, we do the same thing over and over and over again. And if you read any of the NIOSH stories, they pretty much are summed up as saying, once upon a time, a fire department went to a fire or a hazmat call or some type of emergency, and things went bad, they went sideways, and here's what happened. And it's the same story every time, you guys. The top 5 are, and it's a lack of. So this takes a look at, not of were they crushed? Did they get hit by a car? Did they have a heart attack? It's not looking at that. This is looking a little bit deeper. We're going down a layer of to look at what really happened here as far as contributing factors, not the actual incident or the event that killed them, but what were the contributing factors. And I even like to do, and I'm not going to do it in here, but there's actually another layer down. When you really look at the culture and the values of the organization where it happened, is the big picture I think you need to look at. But for the sake of this one, we're going to use incident command and focus on these 5 top factors, which is, usually there was not a risk assessment done, is what they call it. But a risk assessment, you guys, for us, is there wasn't a very good size up done. They really didn't understand what they were getting into, and the excitement of the incident led to responders getting into areas that they really weren't doing a very good job of doing a risk assessment and a risk reward assessment. And we're basically, you guys know that if you've been around a while, we're pretty lucky with the number of injuries and line of duty deaths we have compared to what we could have. The second one, you guys, is incident command structure. What was their incident command structure? And it usually comes back to one person who's the incident commander was trying to do too many things at one time. So they're not able to, he or she cannot do a risk assessment the whole time and be the safety officer and looking at what tactics and trying to look at it from a strategic standpoint. I don't care how good you are. If you're the, a 40-year battalion chief in Midtown Manhattan, you can't do that stuff. Next one is a struggle for all of us is accountability of your staff that are there and volunteers that come in and try to help, whether you're using citizens or volunteer firefighters and EMS, or you have paid staff. Keeping track of them is a challenge. Just Monday night, my city, we had a commercial fire. For us, it was a third alarm. So we had a lot of people there, and we tried to do a pretty good job. But it's like herding cats and trying to know where everybody's at and what they're doing. It is a challenge. Next one is communications. And so a lot of it that we're going to talk about communications, it could be the radio system you're on, the actual radios you use. Our city's our county's just getting ready to go over to the ICS system and going to digital. We use VHF, and actually it works pretty good in our city. We don't have problems, but we're looking for that improvement there, and then having the redundant system for when storms come through and take down your system. And so with communications, it could be the infrastructure you're using or your radios, but a lot of it comes down to we don't do a very good job of talking to our people and training them how to talk on the radio and when to talk and when not to talk. And then the last one, you guys, is a lack of SOPs. An organization didn't have SOPs on how to deal with that situation, or they did and they just failed to follow them. So that's our top 5 stories. You can go back since NIOSH has been doing this function and read their line of duty death reports and their recommendations. And sadly enough, it's the same story. Once upon a time, these 5 things all lined up, or maybe 2 of them lined up, and it led to bad things happening. So we'll go ahead and jump in. So what am I talking about with the lack of risk assessment? And really, risk assessment is just size up. You're doing a poor size up of what's going on. You guys, and I've been involved in incidents where as incident commanders where there were swift water rescue, drownings, multiple casualty incidents that were traumatic incidents where there was a multi-vehicle accident with a lot of injuries. So it's not all fire stuff. I'm talking about hazardous materials. I've been involved in my time with just about anything that can happen if trying to manage those incidents. So the problem with that is we usually get tunnel vision, and the excitement of the incident leads us to having that tunnel vision, and we're not getting a real good 360 picture of what's really going on. So I'm kind of at a point in my life where I'm kind of like in the last few years, I've been doing a little bit of research, and the Army just came out the great document about building resilient soldiers. And they talk a lot about people's heart rate and what happens to your sense of what's going on, of what are you seeing, what are you hearing, and being able to even talk as your heart rate goes up with excitement. All those things start to go away, and leads to us doing a poor size up. The other thing, you guys, is risk reward. And when we go to that incident, it's hard to do. You have to make that risk reward. What are we doing? That incident I'm talking about the other night, it was in the evening. There was a shift commander. We had a little strategic conversation, and I reminded him, hey, this is a vacant building. Just you got people in the building, and it's rocking and rolling here. And just remember, this is a vacant building. So it could be that you guys, emergency management helps us out. We have the Des Moines River that runs through our community, and someone has an unfortunate incident where they drowned, and we go there and we think we're in the rescue mode. And really, if we get there and they're not above the water, we're in a recovery mode. And we just need to remember that when we go to these incidents. And I know a lot of my folks out there that you're watching this, your emergency management, hey, don't hesitate to speak up. And you're sitting there and coming to assist. Don't hesitate to speak up and remind the incident commander of some of those things. If you're sitting there and they're focused in with their tunnel vision and their pulse rates up and they're not looking at it, if you see something, say something, remind them of this is a rescue or a recovery type thing. our EMA right now, he was at that fire with us the other night. And he came up to the command post, and he feels comfortable, I hope, talking to us and helping out any way he can. So I know a lot of my people out there, your EMA folks, but go do that. We appreciate that. The other thing is people don't understand what they're seeing. I'll not to make this all fire centric, but building construction or reading smoke, or a lot of these incidents like a drowning or a swift water rescue type incident, those are very low frequency, high risk that we just don't deal with all that time. Even structure fires are low frequency, high risk, and we just don't deal with that, and we don't understand what we're seeing, and we just keep trying to move forward. And then the last one with the size up and risk assessment, that's for everybody from the incident commander to the newest person on the fire ground. And that goes contrary to what a lot of people's beliefs are. But I'm telling you, you have to be humble and just know that, hey, if you've been doing this job for 30 years and you have seen significant incidents, the newest person, the least senior person, they bring a lot to the table, and you need to be able to listen to them and hear what they're saying if they see something that they think looks dangerous. I'm big on this one. I learned this quote many years ago. I was at a conference. Some of you may not even know him. Sadly, a lot of people don't know who he is anymore. Alan Brunacini was the fire chief of Phoenix Fire Department. And he actually started Fire Command many years ago and was one of the godfathers of the incident command system. And I was at a conference, and he threw this quote out there, and he was famous for having these great quotes, but he said, don't let the excitement of emergency response, he called it, don't let the excitement of the job lead to a death. So as an incident commander or an emergency manager, we're going to these incidents where people's got an adrenaline dump and their pulse rate's up and the excitement level's up. Do not let that lead to a death. So we gotta calm things down, bring people's heart rates down, and get some blood flowing back to their brain there, and think their way through it. So just be logical, man. Be logical, and it's our job to be calm and professional. Use reason. We all like, hey, we're an aggressive fire department, and we all like to say that. There is a difference between aggressive and reckless, and I threw the name Aggressive Incident Command on this because it sounds cool, and it's like, hey, how many people want to sign up for an incident command class, right? But aggressive command, that sounds kind of cool. But so we're telling you to be aggressive, but don't be reckless. Do not be reckless. And I'm not getting into the terminology of that, but so we want to be aggressive. I do believe that being too passive leads to excess risk. We can't be having paralysis by analysis. You can't overanalyze and have paralysis. It could be our forces, our people be put in harm's way, and it could be the citizens that we're protecting can be in harm's way. You can't make every decision with 100% of the information you need. You need to gather information and think of it for like an EMS call or something, that you're doing your patient assessment and you're starting to make decisions already before you have the whole picture. So same thing with the emergency response and using incident command. You're not going to be able to just sit back and do a size up for 20 minutes and then start your operation. It doesn't work that way. Think about long-term outcomes. Understand what the problems are and what you can solve and what you can't solve. With the whole COVID thing, when our county stood up their EOC, and I learned about what people should be in the EOC, which ones shouldn't be in the EOC. And we were trying to solve problems that we couldn't understand, that we couldn't. And I tried to remind people that at the time, I was thinking it was going to be like the flu, and thought it would be over like the flu season when May and June came around. I was wrong, just like a lot of people. But I did warn people, hey, this isn't a 100-meter sprint here. This is not even a marathon. This is the ultra marathon. So you need to understand that some of the problems are not going to be solved for a long time, that you're going to have to be managing those for a long time. So in our county, in Webster County, we started off way too aggressive. We were stood up our EOC and we were meeting 3 times a week, and we got burned out on it, and then took it down to like 2 times a week and then 1 time a week. And that was pretty stressful time. And you guys probably all went through that, and you're probably still going through that. And we're going to talk about curves and making predictions here in a little bit. So lead your people to a better place. That this was for my own people. Victory disease is something I picked up in another podcast I was listening to. What that means is if we're successful, so many times we start to believe that we're invincible, and that we're the best paramedic or the best firefighters in the world. And we get a little, we need to be humble and remember that your victory today means nothing tomorrow. So you didn't write something in the stars that is going to mean you're going to be successful for your career. Those 5 things that are in the NIOSH every time report, those are waiting to cause problems for you on your next incident. A lack of incident command. I hope at this point in our world that people are not able to say they don't even have an incident command, but it does happen. And hopefully your agency and your counties are doing that and trying to get better all the time. So we're never perfect, and we try to get better every time. So you can't use an incident command system, you guys, when you're overwhelmed. You have to use it on the little stuff. So when the big one happens, you're able to grow into a larger system. So maybe a lot of you live, luckily that derecho, I think is the terminology they called it, that storm we had, it actually started kind of over in it was south of Fort Dodge, but it started in this part. We had a little bit of stuff happen that day, nothing crazy. We had a bump up in calls with power lines down, but as it went east, the destruction it caused, that was significant, and where you had to have a significant incident command system, an EOC set up. You can't go from never doing that to being able to do that. I can tell you that right now. If you're not doing incident command system and thinking about EOCs and being prepared for large events like that, you're not going to be successful with that. So, and I put in there, not for commercial means, that was from my firefighters. Typically a house fire is a short operation, and we can fumble and bumble our way through it and have a minimal incident command system. And then when we have a commercial larger structure, we set up a larger structure. But I can tell you guys, going back to the same thing with that storm, you cannot manage a big incident by just pulling it out of your pocket at that time. You have to be part of your daily thoughts and operations. So I threw the term out there, you guys, decentralized command philosophy. I'm going to say it again. The incident commander alone cannot process all the information and make all the decisions on tactical level that needs to be done. Yeah, I don't care how good you are, you can't do it. Some people are going to be stronger than others, but you cannot do that. And I know incident command, when you see the chart from NIMS and it talks about breaking stuff off, it really doesn't do a good job for us to explain of, it's kind of leaves you still that with that concept that the incident commander is the be all know all person. And that is just a fallacy. So what I'm talking about here is not more bosses. It's about using the people that you have already and decentralizing some of those tasks that need to be done, and some of that decision making and information processing. They're already out on the front lines. So they're your best eyes and ears out there to be processing the information and making decisions. Okay. So that's what we're talking about there. I'm not talking about adding more bosses and having this cool structure of all the boxes that are being filled there that you learn in the NIMS class. I'm talking about, there is a time for that maybe, but I'm talking about maybe thinking about that's not the answer to really running an incident that's managed well and is bringing safety to the people. So people who are company officers or people who are lieutenants, captains, senior responders. They're out on the front lines, and they're supervising their crews. They're your eyes and ears out there, where they're doing the size up and giving you information. And the other thing, you guys, with incident command, and when you respond to an incident, when none of us ever have enough, we're not blessed. We don't have like a New York City Fire Department, or Chicago Fire Department, or LA Fire Department. Well, I can't throw 100 people on a call at one time. So all of us in Iowa were that way. In New York City Fire Department, we found that on September 11th, that they could have emergencies that they can't handle all at once. So we have to prioritize and execute. And what that means, you guys, is you have to look at, of all the things that are going on that need tactical remedies for, that you can't do all of them at one time. You have to prioritize and execute them and start moving down the line. Okay. So I bet a lot of you felt that with that derecho. We feel that whenever we have a storm come through our city, and you got power lines down and trees falling on houses, and still Grandma Smith's having chest pains and all those things that are still going on. You end up having to prioritize and execute. And we can feel overwhelmed by that, but just accept that you can't do it all at once, and you just prioritize and execute and keep moving on. You guys, lack of accountability for me as an incident commander, that is one of my pet peeves, and it causes me a lot of anxiety. And I'm not by nature a control freak, but I need to know who's on the scene. I need to know who they're working for. If you're starting to delegate off tactical level supervisors, and if you want to stick with the NIMS and you're calling them group or division supervisors, whatever you want to call them, I need to know who's working in those areas, and they need to know who they're reporting to, who they're working with, and who are they working for. What areas are they working? So by NIMS terminology, a division is a geographical area, and a group is by task, whatever task they're doing. So I tend to use division for everything. So I don't want to get the NIMS gods upset, but that's just what I term NIMS. And sometimes we use in our department, we just use common terminology, common language of what they're doing. So when they go to rehab, you guys, here's where I see a problem. And I just saw it the other night at our incident I was at. So if they go in there, do their task, and they come in, they're going to go do some rehab, they're going to take a break, or they're going to change their air bottle at a fire. And they see cool stuff going on at an incident, or they hear something exciting going on, they kind of reassign themselves to areas. And I see that, and I guarantee it happens in every organization, because we're all kind of like alpha dogs, and they like the adrenaline, and they want to go to where the cool stuff is. So that is a problem with accountability that I know happens in my department, and it happens in everybody's organization. So with that decentralized command, you guys, it is not only what incident command teaches is that you have that span of control of 3 to 5. That obviously that's the main foundation of incident command training, of being able to delegate those workers off. But decentralized command means more than that. It means that you're not only having that span of control, but you're also taking the span of control of the size up in tactical decisions away from the incident commander, in the safety of the incident too. One thing we do a lot of times is we'll assign a safety officer, and really in a lot of departments with lack of staffing, we may not have a safety officer. I don't know of a fire department in Iowa that has designated safety officers on their department. Even Des Moines, I don't think they do. That's gonna, unless they delegate it off. They don't have, like some larger cities, that's the person's job, that they're a safety officer for their shift, and they responded to only do that function. And to be honest, a good friend of mine, he's a shift commander in Denver Fire Department. And before he did that job, he was a safety officer in Denver Fire Department. So, and he's the only one on duty, and Denver's a large city. So whenever there was a major incident going on, he would get dispatched there. And the reality was, by the time he got there, unless it happened to be close to where he was stationed out of, the incident was already over, or so many things had already happened that that function of doing that just doesn't work that well. The other thing happens if you've been at an incident and you assign a safety officer, that's great. I'm not knocking that, but it seems like they go around and they're looking at safety, and two things happen. One, they come around every 15, 20 minutes, and a lot of stuff can happen in that gap time. And the other thing is people know who the safety officer is, and they see him coming, and guess what they start doing? They start being safe, and then when the safety officer gets out of sight, they go back to being unsafe. So part of the decentralized command concept with this is that your tactical level supervisors, and everybody should be a safety officer. You guys, communications, a couple things with that is background noise causes problems for communications, human error. They're on the wrong channel. The one thing that our people, when they saw our talk groups we're getting ready to switch over to the state ISIC system and the digital, the capabilities that they have. I know the reality is we're going to work in our world and we're going to have the ability to be able to talk a little better. We use Life Flight, Unity Point Life Flight. We're going to be able to talk to them probably a little better. More of our agencies around here, but I do have concerns that there are so many talk groups that I have concerns that managing the channels that are now available to them. So those are the things I'm talking about, is they don't know how to use a radio, they're on the wrong channels, things like that is human error issues that I'm talking about there. If they're in a hazardous environment and they're wearing an SCBA, obviously that's a problem of trying to communicate. Radio issues of if you're in a location where you can't even get the signal out, if you're in a building or you're spread apart or you're out in an area that's in a valley or something, those are just all radio issues that we all deal with. And the other thing is from a standard operating procedure of how to talk on the radio that you're using. I'm going to start off with the last one. Hey, you, it's me is what we use in our city. And that means when I'm going to talk on the radio, whoever I want to talk to. So if I'm the incident commander and I want to talk to engine one, that I use the hey, you, it's me. I would start off, I'd key the mic, say engine one from command to get their attention. And then they should reconfirm back, this is engine one, go ahead command. And then I can give them the message. And then we want them to confirm back. Engine one understands we're going to go to the second floor and check for fire extension. And then it's a closed loop. And so we push that pretty hard, not always perfect. The dispatchers just gave me some feedback that, hey, your guys' staff is getting a little sloppy on just saying, hey, medic one's en route to this certain address, that they're just getting on the radio and saying we're en route to that address, and they don't know the unit number or they didn't give the address. So those are all things that you have, they're never going to be perfect, and you have to keep pushing on that. And if you have an SOPs for how do you give a mayday when you're in trouble, or do you have we call it an urgent message where you're not called for a mayday, but something serious is going on, and how do you give that communication for an urgent message and everybody else be quiet so you can get it out? And then CAN stands for conditions, actions, and needs. So you've seen the radio person on the radio and they're blabbing and talking away, and they give a size up of what color the house is, and it looks like it just got painted and the guy's already got his Christmas lights up. We don't need that information. We just need, what are the conditions, what are the actions going on, and what are your needs? Go back to the incident commander. And if you're in a large incident, that goes back to the EOC of what's going on out in the field. What are the conditions, what's going on, and what are our needs? So the EOC's job is to be making predictions and trying to understand the needs and try to maybe fill those needs that are needed out there. Fail to follow SOPs. And you guys, I put this in, I guarantee this for everybody. That is probably our greatest weakness, and that is what we allow. So I'm not, I've gotten better as I've gone up the ranks, but if you see something, someone's not following the SOPs, you got to correct them on it. And I'm not one to be Mr. Discipline guy, but sometimes we shy away from, nothing really bad happened, so we don't say anything. If you allow that, you're just setting yourself up for failure. So we always need to be respectful to our staff and correct them and teach them and it's a never ending process. So I stole this from Jocko Willink too. Discipline equals freedom, which seems very counterintuitive. But if we can build discipline into our people to follow the SOPs and the right way to talk on the radio, and when they get off a little bit, you correct them and keep that discipline in there. It leads to freedom for you as an incident commander and you as a boss of people. It makes life a little easier. And I always compare this to being a parent and having children. If you teach your kids how to pick up the room when they're little, when they become teenagers, you're not fighting with them all the time. Or when you get them when they're little and you teach them to do their homework, when they go to college, they're prepared for that environment. Same thing with our people with incident command. You got to teach them to get that little bit of discipline of following things. And the last thing, you guys, with that is leadership capital. We only have so much leadership capital in the bank, and you have to determine what are you going to burn that capital on. So when it comes to safety, you guys, you need to speak up and say something, is what I'm saying there. So pick your battles, choose your battles wisely with your leadership capital when it comes to safety and following SOPs and incident command system. That's important, where you need to speak up and say something. And they might not like it. And we had an incident last year where I saw some things I was not happy with, and at the scene I raised my voice. And we always do after actions and learn from them. And I said, you guys, you know what? If I see something, I'm saying something. So actually, I wasn't the incident commander. I was running our accountability system. So those are times when you need to speak up. And if you're not a fire chief out there, you're emergency management, and you're on the scene and you see something, speak up and say something. You might save someone's life. So this is a pretty cool concept, you guys, here. I'm going to kind of move through this a little quickly here, but in the world of, I don't care what the response is, it doesn't have to be a fire, that there's things going on at a task level, and then a tactical level, and then a strategic level. And so new people that are down at the bottom of our organizational chart, they're doing tasks. I don't care what it is. I have a lot of firefighting terminology there, but they're pulling fire hose, they're cutting trees in a storm. They're doing things like that at a task level, and their focus is very small. Then you go up to the next level is a tactical level, where you have people who are mid-level supervisors who are making decisions on bigger picture things that relate to the tasks that they're doing. And on the other end of the spectrum is from a strategic level, where people, the incident commander, people are captains or some chief level title, you're making decisions on a strategic level. And I'm telling you, it's hard to go from task level to strategic level. And I've struggled with that my whole time. I mentioned earlier, most of my career, you guys, was down and still my passion is doing tasks and tactical stuff. And I always poo-pooed off the thought of strategic. I always thought what I was doing as a task or a tactical was the most important thing. Hey, if we just let's do our job, the incident's going away. But there has to be people looking at a strategic level and looking at the incident curve and thinking about what's going on. So I hope that makes sense to you. You cannot be an incident commander and be thinking task, tactical, and strategic is the whole point I'm trying to make with this decentralized aggressive command. So check out this curve, you guys. This is really important, and I can relate it even to, early on in the whole pandemic, there was curves and all these curves and what's the curve doing and stuff. And it really is relevant to what we do and how we plan. And so the gold one there is typical incident where you have the scene, the incident happens, and we have all this stuff going on at the scene, and we have all these tasks that need to be done, and you're prioritizing and executing and setting up people to be supervisors at mid-level, and then things kind of calm down a little bit. In some incidents, they just keep calming down, and the incident, you managed it and it goes away. But sometimes you think you've got yourself up over the hump and things are starting to calm down, and then something bad happens. At a fire, they find a victim in the building on fire. They've knocked the fire down, but then they come across, they found a victim. Or one of our responders gets injured or hurt, and a mayday is called, or they need that. And now the curve jumps way back up. So what happens to incident commanders, you guys, is we get that lag over there, and we get very reactive, where we're thinking, okay, we're going to spray water on the fire. Looks like the fire is going out. Everything's going good. And then something goes sideways, and now we're in a reactive mode. And to be honest, that happens most of the time. So what the message I'm giving here is, try to be strategic and think ahead of it. So if you go to an incident that's a fire, assume that, hey, maybe we're going to find someone in there, that one of our people is going to get in trouble and they're going to find a mayday. In my department right now, and me mentally being the leader of my department, and I'm seeing it happen. We had the whole COVID craze. The incident curve went crazy early spring, and we did the EOC, and then it died down. Our city, Fort Dodge has a very large state correctional facility. They had a COVID outbreak there that stressed my department for 3 weeks tremendously. There was a lot of sick people. The curve went way back up. We didn't see it coming, but I should have saw it coming, man. And right now is the numbers are starting to tick up. I'm seeing the curve, and I just literally minutes before I started this, I got word that another one of my staff tested positive one the other day. And so I'm mentally, strategically trying to prepare myself for what I think is going to be on the COVID thing affecting my agency. Is now everybody's indoors and we're going into flu season. So I'm relating it to the COVID and how I'm thinking as a manager strategically, how am I going to manage that, and what actions I'm going to have to be taking through the next coming months. So you do that all the time, and we don't do a very good job of that. And again, from me speaking, I'm not saying I was good at that. That's something I've just learned in the last couple of years, that someone needs to be thinking strategically there and stay ahead of the curve. You're like a weather forecaster. You're predicting the weather of what it's going to be in the next couple of days and preparing for that. And if you prepare for severe weather coming through in 36 hours and it doesn't happen, that's cool. And a lot of times we get beat up on that. Schools will close school based on the weather, and it snows an inch and we didn't get a foot with 50-mile-an-hour winds. It didn't happen. We'd rather be that way than the curve that's in the gray, where you're playing catch up and you have that big reaction lag there. So you guys, I'm going to wrap up a couple things here. The tactical bosses, they need to be the ones out on the front lines doing the size up and looking what's going on. The incident commander, you're too far away and you're not close enough to know what's going on. So the tactical supervisors that you've delegated off and have a couple people work for them, let them tell you what they're seeing and what's going on. Let them make the decisions out there. If you think they're making the wrong decisions, you can straighten them out. They're the best ones to do the accountability. Let them account for the crews that have been assigned to them. They have the eyes on them. Let them be the ones that do the communication with each other face to face and reduce radio traffic. And then if they need to talk back to the incident commander, it'd be those tactical supervisors, or the NIMS terminology, a division or group. Let them be safety officers. This puts multiple safety officers embedded into the incident, instead of having the one safety officer walking around every 15 minutes and everybody sees him coming and starts acting like when a teacher came back in the classroom. So have your tactical officers be the safety officers. So some things you need to know as a tactical officer: you need to know your boundaries. If you're going to delegate someone off, let them know what their boundaries. Disregard. I have my Fort Dodge Fire engine and medic. And in my department, everybody has pre-assigned things of what they're doing based on what arrival they are and what they're doing. And that's all cool stuff that if you can predetermine that through SOPs. So they need to know what resources they have under, if you're a boss, a supervisor, you need to know what resources you have. And then you all need to know what are your objectives. If I'm the incident commander, say, okay, I'm going to make you a supervisor or boss, you need to know what's my boundaries geographically or tactically. And you need to know what do I have to help get that done. And you need to know what you expect them to get done from an objective wise. Skills of these people, you don't want people who are reckless. You want people who are aggressive, who can take command of their space, that own their space, but they go through the incident commander when needed, but they're able to do their work that they need to get done. So if you're a tactical supervisor and you have your space, that people are going through that supervisor, not the incident commander, that would throw the span of control out of there. So they need to have a good knowledge. You can't have someone who's a brand new responder be a tactical supervisor or a division or group supervisor. So they need to know whatever your incident is. They need to know building construction, tactics, whether it's a technical rescue situation or a hazardous material. They need to be subject matter experts. They need to be agile mentally, thinking ahead. I'm not talking agile physically. And I love this quote. I saw this from Wayne Gretzky, and I've used it a lot over the years. That I saw an article I was reading about him where the great one, Wayne Gretzky, and they said, how did you score all those points as a hockey player? And he said, I learned a little trick as a child. I go to where the puck is going to be. So he was looking 10 steps. He's not focused down here fighting over the puck. He was setting himself up to where he thought where it was going to go. So I teach that in incident command. Think ahead. What's coming next? What are those things that are going to be coming down the pipe? Whether it's a severe weather incident that you've experienced, an ice storm, a windstorm, a tornado, a fire, a hazardous material incident. Be thinking 10 steps ahead. Don't get caught in the gray curve where you're reacting. And you know what reality is? Things are either getting better or they're getting worse. So that's the reality. Be mobile. Have those people up in front. Be moving around. An incident command post is usually in one position where you're not mobile and you don't know what's going on. So having that decentralized command and using those aggressive task leaders is they're constantly out front monitoring conditions. You're monitoring by them giving you CAN reports of what's conditions, what do I got going on, what are the needs, okay? You don't want to if you've ever been that one person working, an incident commander's calling you every 2 minutes to get an update. There's nothing more frustrating than that. So if you're an incident commander, resist that. DICE, this is someone who's strategic in nature, who's thinking 10 steps ahead. So remember, the incident commander should not, in reality, cannot make all the decisions and tactical decisions. They can't keep accountability of everybody, and they can't be the safety officer. Let that be decentralized. Be proactive in your planning. Think about things that are going to go sideways in your incident and stay on that curve, looking ahead of that. Think about backup plans. And I'm not one of those guys I'm not one that believes on Friday the 13th that are in a full moon that Bigfoot's going to come do an attack in your community. I'm not one of those guys. So I'm not saying do that. Don't go down that rabbit hole and get paralyzed by that, but be thinking of what's going to be coming down the pipe. Set up your command in a good location, coordinate your divisions, think about exposures and some of this fire centric, but set yourself up in a nice place where you can work. Get your staging area set up. That's hugely important. So you guys, these small fires I'm going to probably break here, not make this fire centric. This is a smaller incident for most departments. This would be a larger incident we had this spring in my city, but I'm going to break at this point. Steve, I don't know if you're on there. We got about 10 minutes left. I'd like to take the last couple minutes, see if there's any questions out there.
Okay, Steve. Yeah, I've been monitoring the questions in the chat box. We don't have anything, but if you do have questions or want to comment on anything, please go ahead and enter those in now, and we'll read them off, and Steve will try and answer them. So